I never thought I'd fall for a street musician, let alone hire one as my research assistant. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, especially in the sweltering heat of Tampa. It was a typical Saturday afternoon at the downtown street festival. The air was thick with the scent of fried food and the sounds of laughter. I was there to clear my head after a week of frustrating lab results. That's when I heard it, a haunting melody that stopped me in my tracks. There she was, a vision in a sundress, her blonde hair catching the sunlight as she played the violin. Her fingers danced across the strings with a grace that made my heart skip a beat. I stood there mesmerized as the crowd around her grew. When she finished her piece, I found myself clapping louder than anyone else. Our eyes met, and I swear I felt a jolt of electricity run through me. I had to talk to her. "That was incredible," I said, approaching her as she packed up her instrument. She looked up, her green eyes sparkling. "Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it." "I'm Paige," I said, extending my hand. "Paige Anderson." "Melissa Bennett," she replied, her handshake firm and warm. We got to talking, and I learned she was a recent graduate with a degree in biochemistry. It was like fate had dropped the perfect candidate right in my lap. "I run a research lab at the university," I blurted out. "We're looking for a new assistant. Would you be interested?" Her eyes widened. "Are you serious? I've been applying everywhere, but—" "Come by the lab on Monday," I said, scribbling down the address. "We'll talk details." As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just changed both our lives. Monday came, and with it, Melissa. She looked different in her professional attire, but no less stunning. I gave her a tour of the lab, introducing her to the team and explaining our current project. "It's a lot to take in," I said, noticing her overwhelmed expression. "No, it's fascinating," she insisted. "I can't wait to get started." And start she did. Melissa dove into the work with an enthusiasm that was infectious. But as the days passed, I found myself increasingly distracted by her presence. The way she bit her lip when concentrating, the sound of her laugh when someone cracked a joke, it was all I could do to keep my composure. One evening, we were the last two in the lab. Melissa was peering into a microscope, her brow furrowed in concentration. "What do you see?" I asked, leaning in close. She looked up, startled by my proximity. Our faces were inches apart. For a moment, I thought she might kiss me, but she just smiled and gestured for me to take a look. As I bent over the microscope, I could feel the heat of her body next to mine. It took all my willpower to focus on the slides. "This is incredible," I murmured, trying to ignore the way my heart was racing. "I know, right?" Melissa said, her excitement palpable. "I think we're onto something big here." I straightened up, meeting her gaze. "We make a good team," I said softly. "Yeah," she replied, her voice equally quiet. "We do." The tension between us was palpable, but neither of us seemed willing to cross that line. Not yet, anyway. As the weeks passed, our work progressed rapidly. But so did my feelings for Melissa. I found myself looking for excuses to work late, to spend more time with her. And I couldn't shake the feeling that she was doing the same. But there was still a professional boundary between us, one that I was terrified to cross. What if I was reading the signals wrong? What if it ruined our working relationship? Little did I know, fate was about to throw us another curveball, one that would test our bond and change everything. As summer faded into fall, Melissa and I fell into a comfortable rhythm at the lab. Our days were filled with experiments, data analysis, and the occasional breakthrough that had us high-fiving like giddy schoolgirls. But it was the quiet moments that I treasured most. The late nights when we'd order in Chinese food and eat straight from the cartons, swapping stories over steaming dumplings. One such night, as we pored over a particularly puzzling set of results, Melissa suddenly straightened up and stretched, her shirt riding up to reveal a sliver of toned stomach. I quickly averted my eyes, feeling my cheeks burn. "You know," she said, oblivious to my flustered state, "I never thought I'd end up here when you approached me at that street fair. It's funny how life works out, isn't it?" I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm glad it did, though. You've been an incredible asset to the team." She smiled, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "Just to the team?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with unspoken meaning. I opened my mouth to respond, but the timer on our centrifuge chose that moment to go off, shattering the tension. As the weeks passed, our research began to yield promising results. We were on the verge of a breakthrough in molecular binding that could revolutionize drug delivery systems. The excitement in the lab was palpable, and it seemed to amplify the electricity between Melissa and me. One afternoon, as we huddled over a microscope, our hands brushed. I felt that familiar jolt, stronger than ever. When I looked up, Melissa's face was inches from mine, her green eyes wide and questioning. For a moment, I thought she might lean in. But then someone dropped a beaker in the next room, and the spell was broken. Despite these moments of tension, our work continued to flourish. We spent countless hours side by side, our conversations flowing effortlessly from scientific theories to personal anecdotes. I learned about her childhood in Florida, her dreams of making it as a musician, and how she'd fallen in love with science almost by accident. In turn, I found myself opening up to her in a way I hadn't with anyone in years. I told her about my struggles as a woman in a male-dominated field, my fear of failure, and my secret passion for terrible reality TV shows. As we grew closer, I couldn't help but notice the little things about her, the way she'd scrunch her nose when she was concentrating, or how she'd unconsciously hum classical pieces while working. It was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain a professional distance. Our breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday evening. We'd been working on a particularly tricky protein folding problem for weeks, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. The results were undeniable. We'd done it. "Oh my gosh, Paige," Melissa exclaimed, her eyes wide as she stared at the computer screen. "Do you realize what this means?" I nodded, too stunned to speak. This could change everything. Without thinking, I pulled her into a tight hug. She stiffened for a moment, then melted into my embrace. We stood there, holding each other, hearts pounding with excitement, and something else I wasn't quite ready to name. When we finally pulled apart, our faces were flushed, and not just from the excitement of our discovery. Melissa's eyes darted to my lips, and for a moment, I thought she might kiss me. But instead, she just squeezed my hand and said, "We should celebrate." We decided to go out for drinks, just the two of us. As we sat in a dimly lit bar, nursing our cocktails, the conversation flowed easily. Maybe it was the alcohol, or the high of our success, but I found myself staring at Melissa's lips as she spoke, wondering what they'd taste like. "Paige?" Melissa's voice snapped me out of my reverie. "Are you okay? You seem distracted." I blinked, realizing I'd been caught. "Sorry, I was thinking about how far we've come. How lucky I am to have you as my assistant." She smiled, a hint of something in her eyes that made my heart race. "I'm the lucky one," she said softly, reaching out to touch my hand. The moment was charged, electric. I leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force. Melissa mirrored my movement, her eyes fluttering closed. Our lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. It was brief, just a whisper of contact, but it sent shockwaves through my entire body. When we pulled apart, we were both breathless. "Wow," Melissa whispered, her cheeks flushed. "Yeah," I agreed, unable to form a more coherent thought. We spent the rest of the evening in a daze, caught between the euphoria of our breakthrough and the newfound tension between us. As we parted ways that night, I couldn't help but wonder what this meant for our future, both professionally and personally. Little did I know, our celebration was about to be cut short by an accusation that would shake the very foundation of our relationship and our careers. The morning after our kiss, I woke up with a mixture of excitement and anxiety churning in my stomach. How would this change our dynamic at work? As I got ready, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Can't wait to see you today." Those simple words sent a flutter through my chest. Maybe this wouldn't be so awkward after all. But as soon as I stepped into the lab, I knew something was wrong. There was a palpable tension in the air, and my colleagues were huddled in small groups, whispering urgently. When they saw me, they fell silent. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart sinking. Dr. Roberts, the head of our department, approached me with a grim expression. "Paige, we need to talk, in private." As we walked to his office, my mind raced. Had someone seen Melissa and me at the bar? Were we in trouble for fraternization? The reality was far worse. "There's been a theft," Dr. Roberts said once we were seated. "The new spectrophotometer, it's missing." I blinked, confused. "Missing? But that's impossible. It's locked up in the secure storage room." He nodded gravely. "Which is why we're treating this as an inside job. And, I'm sorry to say this, but there's been an accusation against Melissa." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" That's ridiculous. Melissa would never. An anonymous tip came in this morning, he interrupted, claiming they saw her accessing the storage room after hours last night. My mind flashed back to our celebratory drinks. That's impossible. She was with me last night. We were celebrating our breakthrough. Dr. Roberts raised an eyebrow but didn't comment on that. I'm afraid we have to take this seriously, Paige. Until we get to the bottom of this, Melissa is suspended from the lab. I left his office in a daze, my head spinning. How could this be happening? Just when everything seemed to be falling into place, it was all crumbling around us. I found Melissa in our shared office, her face pale and drawn. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Paige, I swear I didn't do this, she said, her voice breaking. You have to believe me. I pulled her into a hug, not caring who might see. Of course I believe you, I murmured into her hair. We'll figure this out. As we pulled apart, I saw the fear in her eyes. What if we can't? This could ruin my career before it even starts. I won't let that happen, I promised, squeezing her hand. We're in this together. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the lab was toxic. Rumors swirled, and I could feel the suspicious glances from our colleagues. Melissa was banned from the premises, so we took to meeting at a small coffee shop near campus. I feel like I'm going crazy, she confessed over her latte. I keep replaying that night in my head, trying to figure out if there's anything I might have done to make someone suspect me. I reached across the table to take her hand. You didn't do anything wrong. Someone's setting you up, and we're going to find out who. As we sat there, fingers intertwined, I couldn't help but marvel at how quickly our relationship had evolved. In the face of this crisis, any awkwardness from our kiss had evaporated. We were united, a team against the world. That night, unable to sleep, I decided to do some digging of my own. I logged into the lab's security system, scrolling through footage from the night of the alleged theft. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Then, around I saw a figure enter the frame. My heart raced as I leaned closer to the screen. The person was wearing a hoodie, their face obscured. They seemed to know exactly where the cameras were, keeping their head down as they made their way to the storage room. I watched, holding my breath, as they entered the code and slipped inside. 10 minutes later, they emerged carrying a large case, unmistakably the missing spectrophotometer. My first instinct was relief. The figure was too tall to be Melissa. But as I studied the footage, a chill ran down my spine. The thief moved with a familiarity that suggested they knew the lab well. This wasn't just some random break-in. It was someone we knew. I was so engrossed in the footage that I didn't hear the door open behind me. Working late, Dr. Anderson? I jumped, slamming the laptop shut. Dr. Roberts stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Just catching up on some work, I lied, my heart pounding. He nodded slowly, his eyes flicking to the closed laptop. I hope you're not letting this unfortunate situation with Ms. Bennett distract you from our project deadlines. Of course not, I said, forcing a smile. Everything's on track. As he left, I let out a shaky breath. I needed to tell Melissa what I'd found, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The next morning, I met Melissa at our usual coffee shop. As soon as she saw my face, she knew something was up. What is it? She asked, her voice low. Did you find something? I nodded, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. I saw the security footage. It wasn't you, Mel, but I think it might be someone from the lab. Her eyes widened. Who? I don't know yet, I admitted. But we're going to find out. As we sat there planning our next move, I felt a mix of determination and fear. We were up against something bigger than we'd realized, and I had a sinking feeling that this was just the beginning of our troubles. But looking at Melissa, her green eyes filled with trust and determination, I knew we'd face whatever came next together. Come hell or high water, I was going to clear her name and uncover the truth, no matter what it cost me. The next few days were a blur of clandestine meetings and sleepless nights. Melissa and I had become amateur detectives, poring over security footage and staff schedules, trying to piece together the puzzle of who could have framed her. Look at this, I said one evening, pointing to my laptop screen. We were huddled in my living room, takeout containers littering the coffee table. The timestamp on this footage is off by about 2 minutes compared to the others. Melissa leaned in, her shoulder brushing mine, The contact sent a shiver down my spine, but I forced myself to focus. "You're right," she murmured. "Someone's tampered with it." "Exactly. But who has that kind of access?" We exchanged a look, both realizing the implications. This went deeper than we'd thought. As we worked, I couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to have Melissa in my space. Her scent, a mix of lavender and something uniquely her, filled my apartment. I found myself stealing glances at her, admiring the way her brow furrowed in concentration, the curve of her neck as she bent over my laptop. "Paige?" Her voice snapped me out of my reverie. "Are you okay?" I blinked, realizing I'd been staring. "Sorry, just thinking." A small smile played at her lips. "About the case?" "Not exactly," I admitted, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. She set the laptop aside, turning to face me fully. "You know, we haven't really talked about that night." My heart rate picked up. "The kiss, you mean?" She nodded, her green eyes searching mine. "I've been wanting to do it again, but with everything that's happened." I didn't let her finish. Throwing caution to the wind, I leaned in and pressed my lips to hers. This kiss was different from our first, less tentative, more urgent. Melissa responded immediately, her hands coming up to tangle in my hair. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. "Wow," I whispered. "Yeah," Melissa agreed, her cheeks flushed. "We should have done that sooner." We spent the rest of the evening alternating between investigating and stealing kisses, the weight of our situation temporarily lifted by the joy of new love. But reality came crashing back the next morning when I arrived at the lab to find the police waiting. "Dr. Anderson," one of the officers greeted me, "we need to ask you some questions about Melissa Bennett." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "Of course, officer. How can I help?" They grilled me for over an hour, asking about Melissa's work habits, our relationship, any suspicious behavior I might have noticed. I answered as honestly as I could without implicating ourselves, all the while my mind racing. Who had called the police? And why now? As soon as they left, I texted Melissa. "Police were here. We need to move fast." That afternoon, we met at a park far from campus, paranoia making us jumpy. "We need to find out who made that anonymous tip," Melissa said, pacing back and forth. "It's the key to all of this." I nodded, watching a group of children play nearby. "I have an idea, but it's risky. I could try to access the department's email server. If the tip came through there, we might be able to trace it." Melissa's eyes widened. "Paige, that's illegal, if you get caught." "I know," I cut her off. "But what choice do we have? Your career is on the line." She fell silent, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but promise me you'll be careful." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I promise." That night, I stayed late at the lab, heart pounding as I attempted to hack into the server. Every noise made me jump, sure that I was about to be caught. But after an hour of tense work, I was in. I scrolled through Dr. Roberts' emails, searching for anything related to the theft. And then I saw it, an email from an anonymous address, sent the morning after our celebration. My blood ran cold as I read the contents. "Dr. Roberts, I saw Melissa Bennett accessing the secure storage room last night around a.m. She was carrying a large case when she left. I thought you should know." But it was the IP address that made my heart stop. I recognized it immediately. It was from within the lab. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching. Panicking, I quickly logged out and pretended to be engrossed in some data analysis. "Dr. Anderson." It was Dr. Roberts. "What are you doing here so late?" I forced a smile, hoping he couldn't hear my racing heart. "Just catching up on some work. Lost track of time." He nodded, but his eyes were suspicious. "Well, don't stay too late. And remember, the police might have more questions. Be careful what you say." As he left, I let out a shaky breath. I needed to tell Melissa what I'd found, but not here. Not where we could be overheard. I texted her to meet me at my place, then gathered my things and left, feeling eyes on me the whole way out. When I got home, Melissa was already there, pacing in my living room. "What happened?" she asked as soon as I walked in. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I collapsed onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I found the email, the anonymous tip. Mel, it came from inside the lab. Her face paled. "What? But who would?" "I don't know. I interrupted. "But whoever it is, they have access to the lab's systems. They knew exactly how to frame you." Melissa sat down heavily beside me. "So what do we do now?" I took her hand, intertwining our fingers. "We find out who sent that email, and we prove your innocence." As we sat there, the gravity of our situation settled over us. We were up against someone with power and access, someone who clearly wanted Melissa out of the picture. But looking into her eyes, I felt a surge of determination. "We're going to get through this," I promised, leaning in to kiss her softly. Together. As our lips met, I silently vowed to protect her, no matter the cost. Little did I know, that vow would be put to the test sooner than I could have imagined. The pressure was mounting. Each day felt like walking a razor's edge, the weight of the accusation pressing down on us. Melissa had moved in with me temporarily, partially for safety, partially because we were desperate to protect each other. Our nights were a mix of intense investigation and moments of raw vulnerability. I'd wake up to find her sketching molecular diagrams on scraps of paper, her blonde hair falling across her face, eyes intense with determination. Other times, she'd curl up against me, her defenses down, revealing the fear that she was trying so hard to hide. "What if I never work in science again?" she whispered one stormy night, rain pelting against the windows. I pulled her closer. "That won't happen. I won't let it." We discovered fragments of evidence, subtle inconsistencies in the lab's records, strange email trails that seemed to lead nowhere, but nothing concrete enough to prove her innocence or expose the real culprit. The university was merciless. Melissa's reputation was being systematically destroyed. Research grants she'd been lined up for were suddenly withdrawn. Colleagues who once respected her now avoided eye contact in hallways. "I've lost everything," she said one morning, staring blankly at her phone. Another rejection letter, another door closing. But I saw something else in her eyes, a fire, a determination that refused to be extinguished. "Not everything," I said, taking her hand. "You still have me." Our intimacy deepened during this challenging time. We found solace in each other. Stolen kisses became passionate embraces. Quiet moments of support transformed into promises of unwavering commitment. One particularly late night, as we pored over digital records, Melissa discovered something odd. A series of encrypted emails that seemed to connect several department members in a strange communication pattern. "Look at this," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "These timestamps. They don't match any official research schedules." I leaned in, my breath catching. She was right. Something was definitely wrong. Just then, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Stop digging," a distorted voice warned. "Some secrets are better left buried." The call disconnected before I could respond. Melissa watched me, her face pale. "Who was that?" "A warning," I said grimly. "We're getting close to something big." The next day, we decided to take a risk. Using connections I'd cultivated over years in academic circles, I arranged a meeting with a retired detective who specialized in academic fraud. We met in a small coffee shop downtown, tucked away from prying eyes. The detective, a weathered woman named Karen Reynolds, listened intently as we shared our story. "Sounds like someone's protecting something," she said, sipping her coffee. "And they're willing to destroy careers to keep it hidden." Her words sent a chill down my spine. That evening, as we prepared dinner together, the tension finally broke. Melissa dropped a plate, it shattered on the kitchen floor, and she began to cry. I pulled her into my arms. "Hey, we're going to be okay." Our intimacy that night was different. Less about passion, more about comfort. A moment of connection in the midst of chaos. The next morning, everything changed. A USB drive appeared in my mailbox. No return address, no indication of its source. Melissa and I huddled together, hearts racing as we plugged it in. What we found would change everything. Spreadsheets, email chains, financial records, evidence of something far larger than a simple equipment theft. Something that implicated not just one person, but an entire network within the university. "Holy shit," Melissa whispered. I squeezed her hand. "We've got them." But victory would come at a price, and we had no idea just how high that price would be. As night fell, we knew our lives were about to be turned upside down. Whatever was coming, we would face it together. The truth was waiting to be unleashed. And we were ready. The morning after our discovery, Melissa and I sat at my kitchen table, bleary-eyed from a night of minimal sleep and maximal anxiety. The USB drive lay between us like a ticking time bomb. "We need to be smart about this," I said, running a hand through my disheveled hair. "If we go public too soon, they might find a way to discredit us." Melissa nodded, her fingers drumming nervously on the table. "But if we wait too long, they could destroy the evidence. We need to move fast." We decided to start with Karen Reynolds, the retired detective. Her experience could be invaluable in navigating this minefield. As we prepared to leave, Melissa pulled me close, her green eyes intense. "Whatever happens, Paige, I want you to know, I love you." My heart soared despite the gravity of our situation. "I love you too," I whispered, sealing the declaration with a kiss. Karen met us at a discreet location, her face grave as we shared our findings. She pored over the documents, her expression growing darker by the minute. "This goes deeper than I imagined," she muttered. "You've uncovered a network of research fraud and embezzlement that spans multiple departments." My stomach churned. "So what do we do?" Karen's eyes were steely. "We build an airtight case, then we take it to the Board of Regents. They're the only ones with enough power to clean house." Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly, connecting dots and filling in gaps. The picture that emerged was staggering. Millions of dollars in research grants had been misappropriated, data falsified to secure additional funding, and anyone who got too close to the truth was systematically discredited or forced out. Melissa had been framed because she'd unwittingly stumbled upon a piece of the puzzle during our breakthrough. The spectrophotometer theft was just a smokescreen. As we delved deeper, the threats escalated. My car was vandalized, a brick thrown through Melissa's apartment window, but we pressed on, driven by a mixture of righteous anger and the knowledge that we were fighting for something bigger than ourselves. Finally, we felt ready. Karen arranged a meeting with 2 members of the Board of Regents she trusted implicitly. The night before the meeting, Melissa and I lay in bed, our bodies intertwined, seeking comfort in each other's warmth. "Are you scared?" she whispered into the darkness. I tightened my arms around her, terrified, but also ready. "We've come too far to back down now." She shifted, propping herself up to look at me. In the dim light, I could see the mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that meeting you, loving you, it's been worth everything." Overwhelmed with emotion, I pulled her down into a passionate kiss. We made love slowly, savoring every touch, every whispered endearment, acutely aware that tomorrow could change everything. The next morning, we dressed carefully, as if donning armor for battle. As we left my apartment, I noticed a dark sedan parked across the street, its windows tinted. My pulse quickened. "We're being watched," I murmured to Melissa. She squeezed my hand. "Let them watch. We have nothing to hide." The meeting was set for noon in a private conference room off campus. As we approached the building, I saw Karen waiting outside, her face tense. "Change of plans," she said quietly as we neared. "The whole board wants to hear this. They're assembling now." My heart raced. This was bigger than we'd anticipated. Inside, we were led to a large conference room. The atmosphere was thick with tension as we took our seats facing the Board of Regents' 12 stern faces regarding us with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Dr. Roberts was there too, his face pale and drawn. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw a flicker of fear in his gaze. "Dr. Anderson, Ms. Bennett," the board chair began. "We understand you have some serious allegations to present. Please proceed." Taking a deep breath, I began our presentation. We laid out the evidence methodically, connecting the dots between falsified research data, misappropriated funds, and the systematic silencing of whistleblowers. As we spoke, the room grew increasingly tense. I could see shock, anger, and disbelief playing across the faces of the board members. Dr. Roberts seemed to shrink in his seat with each new revelation. Finally, we reached the crux of our argument, the framing of Melissa and the elaborate cover-up that followed. "In conclusion," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "we believe this conspiracy goes beyond just our department. It's a systemic issue that threatens the integrity of this entire institution." A heavy silence fell over the room as I finished speaking. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, chaos erupted. Board members began talking over each other, demanding answers. Dr. Roberts attempted to defend himself, his voice rising in panic. In the midst of it all, I felt Melissa's hand slip into mine under the table, a small gesture of solidarity. The board chair called for order, her voice cutting through the din. These allegations are extremely serious. We will need time to verify this information and conduct our own investigation. She turned to us, her expression grave but not unkind. Dr. Anderson, Ms. Bennett, I want to thank you for your courage in bringing this to our attention. Please understand that until we complete our investigation, we'll need to ask you both to take a leave of absence. I nodded, having expected as much. We understand. As we left the room, I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on us. We'd done it, we'd blown the whistle. But the battle was far from over. Outside, the sun was shining, a stark contrast to the turmoil we'd just unleashed. Melissa turned to me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "What now?" she asked softly. I pulled her close, not caring who might see. "Now we wait, and we hope that the truth will finally come to light." As we walked away from the building, hand in hand, I felt a mixture of fear and hope. We'd taken a stand for what was right, regardless of the consequences. Whatever came next, we would face it together. The truth was out there now, impossible to ignore. And in that moment, despite the uncertainty ahead, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had done the right thing. And that was enough. The weeks following our explosive revelation to the Board of Regents were a surreal blur. Melissa and I found ourselves in a strange limbo, suspended from our positions, but suddenly thrust into the spotlight as whistleblowers. The story had broken in the local news, then national, and finally, international scientific journals picked it up. We'd become overnight sensations in the academic world, our names synonymous with integrity and courage. But fame, we quickly learned, was a double-edged sword. "I never thought I'd miss the lab this much," Melissa sighed one morning, scrolling through yet another article about the scandal. We were holed up in my apartment, which had become our sanctuary from the media frenzy. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. "I know, love, but think about what we've accomplished. We're changing things." She leaned back into me, her warmth a comfort. "I just hope it's worth it in the end." As the university's internal investigation progressed, more details emerged that validated our claims. The scope of the fraud was even larger than we'd initially thought, implicating several high-ranking officials and spanning multiple research projects. Dr. Roberts, we learned, had been arrested trying to flee the country. The image of him in handcuffs, broadcast on the evening news, left us with mixed feelings, relief that justice was being served, but also a profound sadness for the betrayal of trust. Our phones rang constantly with interview requests, offers for book deals, and even a few movie producers interested in our story. It was overwhelming, to say the least. "Can you believe this?" Melissa laughed one evening, holding up her phone. "They want us to speak at the International Conference on Research Integrity in Geneva next month." I grinned, pulling her close. "Does this mean I finally get to see you in a fancy evening gown?" She swatted my arm playfully, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I suppose it does, Dr. Anderson. Think you can handle it?" Our relationship had deepened through this ordeal, the shared struggle bringing us closer than ever. We'd seen each other at our most vulnerable and our strongest, and our love had only grown stronger for it. As we prepared for the conference, news came that the university had completed its investigation. We were called in for a meeting with the new interim president, Dr. Samantha Chen. Walking into the administration building felt surreal. The last time we'd been here, we were fighting for our credibility. Now, people nodded respectfully as we passed. Dr. Chen greeted us warmly, her smile genuine. "Dr. Anderson, Ms. Bennett, please have a seat. I have some news I think you'll be pleased to hear." She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were official documents reinstating us to our positions, along with a substantial raise and a formal apology from the university. "Your actions have led to a complete overhaul of our research oversight processes," Dr. Chen explained. "We want you both to be part of rebuilding the integrity of this institution." Melissa and I exchanged glances, a mix of relief and excitement passing between us. "We'd be honored," I said, squeezing Melissa's hand. As we left the office, a weight seemed to lift from our shoulders. Our fight had been worth it. We'd made a difference. The conference in Geneva was a whirlwind of presentations, panel discussions, and networking events. Melissa, true to her word, looked stunning in a sleek black gown that left me breathless. As we stood on the balcony of our hotel room, overlooking the twinkling lights of the city, I felt a surge of emotion. "You know," I said, pulling Melissa close, "a year ago, I never would have imagined we'd be here, that a chance encounter at a street fair would lead to all of this." She turned in my arms, her green eyes shining. "I wouldn't change a thing. Well, maybe the whole being framed for theft part," she added with a wry smile. I laughed, leaning in to kiss her softly. "I love you, Melissa Bennett." "And I love you, Paige Anderson," she whispered against my lips. The next morning, we presented our story to a packed auditorium. As I looked out at the sea of faces, all hanging on our every word, I felt a sense of purpose I'd never experienced before. "In conclusion," Melissa said, her voice strong and clear, "integrity in research isn't just about following rules. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it might cost you everything." The applause was thunderous. As we stepped off the stage, hand in hand, I knew we'd made an impact that would ripple through the scientific community for years to come. Back in our hotel room, giddy with adrenaline and champagne, we fell onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and laughter. "We did it," Melissa murmured, her fingers tracing patterns on my skin. "We did," I agreed, pulling her closer. "And we're just getting started." As we lay there basking in our triumph in each other's presence, I felt a sense of anticipation for the future. We'd faced adversity and come out stronger. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together. Our story, I realized, was far from over. In fact, the most exciting chapter was just beginning. The months following our triumphant return from Geneva were a whirlwind of activity. Melissa and I threw ourselves into our work with renewed passion, determined to rebuild the reputation of our department and push the boundaries of our research. Our breakthrough in molecular binding was finally getting the recognition it deserved. Free from the taint of scandal, we spent long hours in the lab, bouncing ideas off each other, our scientific synergy as strong as our romantic connection. "I think we've got it," Melissa exclaimed one evening, her eyes shining with excitement as she looked up from her microscope. "This could revolutionize drug delivery systems for cancer treatment." I leaned in to examine her results, my heart racing with the thrill of discovery. "You're right. This is incredible, Mel." Our eyes met, and in that moment I was struck by how far we'd come, from strangers at a street fair to partners in every sense of the word. As our research gained momentum, so did our plans for the future. We'd begun talking about buying a house together, maybe even starting a family someday. One balmy evening, as we strolled along Tampa Bay, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, I knew the time was right. "Melissa," I said, my voice trembling slightly as I dropped to one knee, "you've been my partner in science, in love, and in life. Will you marry me?" Her eyes widened, filling with tears as she nodded emphatically. "Yes, Paige, 1,000 times yes." As I slipped the ring onto her finger, our lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home. The weeks that followed were a blur of excitement as we began planning our wedding. We wanted something intimate, a celebration of our love and the journey that had brought us together. But life, as we'd learned, had a way of throwing curveballs. It started with a phone call from Dr. Chen, the interim president who had become a staunch ally. Her voice was grave as she delivered the news. "I'm sorry to inform you," she said, "but there's been a significant cut to our research funding. The fallout from the scandal, it's worse than we anticipated." My stomach dropped. We'd known there might be consequences, but this. "How bad is it?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Bad enough that we may have to shut down several ongoing projects," Dr. Chen replied, "including yours." The news hit us like a physical blow, all our hard work, our breakthroughs. It felt like it was slipping away. Melissa and I threw ourselves into finding alternative funding sources, reaching out to every contact we had. We spent sleepless nights poring over grant applications, our wedding plans pushed to the back burner. But as the weeks wore on, it became clear that the damage to the university's reputation was too severe. Potential donors and collaborators were wary, the stain of the scandal still too fresh. Our research team began to dwindle as funding dried up. Each day brought a new goodbye. Another colleague forced to seek opportunities elsewhere. The final blow came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Chen called us into her office, her face etched with regret. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "We've done everything we can, but we're going to have to shut down the project." The silence that followed was deafening. Years of work, countless breakthroughs, all of it, gone. As we left the office, shell-shocked and numb, Melissa turned to me. "What do we do now?" I wish I had an answer for her. The truth was, I didn't know. The following weeks were some of the hardest of our lives. We watched as our lab was dismantled, equipment packed away or reassigned. Our team scattered to the winds, seeking positions at other institutions. Our wedding, once a beacon of hope, now felt like a distant dream. We postponed it indefinitely, unable to celebrate while our professional lives crumbled around us. One night, as we sat on the couch in our apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes, Melissa broke down. "Was it all for nothing?" she sobbed, her body shaking. "Did we destroy everything we loved for the sake of the truth?" I pulled her close, my own tears falling silently. "No, love, we did the right thing. The truth always matters." But even as I said the words, I felt a flicker of doubt. Had we been naive? Had our quest for integrity cost us everything we'd worked for? As the last of our research was packed away, Melissa and I found ourselves at a crossroads. The university, still reeling from the scandal, couldn't offer us positions that matched our expertise. We were faced with a choice: stay and rebuild from scratch, or seek opportunities elsewhere. "Maybe we should consider that offer from Stanford," Melissa said one evening, her voice heavy with resignation. "At least there we could continue our research." I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and sadness at the prospect. It would be a fresh start. As we began to plan our move, I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet irony. We'd fought so hard to expose the truth, to maintain the integrity of our work, and in doing so, we'd inadvertently brought about the end of the very research we were trying to protect. On our last night in Tampa, we stood on the balcony of our soon-to-be former apartment, looking out at the city that had been the backdrop to our love story. "Do you regret it?" I asked softly, voicing the question that had been haunting us both. "Exposing the fraud?" Melissa was quiet for a long moment, her hand finding mine in the darkness. "No," she finally said. "It was hard, and the cost was higher than we ever imagined. But I couldn't live with myself if we'd stayed silent." I squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of love and pride. "We'll rebuild," I promised, "together." As we turned to go inside, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the window. Two women, battered but not broken, ready to face whatever came next. Our story hadn't ended the way we'd hoped. Our groundbreaking research was on hold, our careers in flux, but we had each other, and we had our integrity. And sometimes, that has to be enough.